Do you live around here?
Sorry?
Do you live around here?
No, I actually live in Atlanta. But I met Elise when I was going to school here. So I've been doing this for since 2017 when they first started the cans company. Do you live in Boston, or you kind of live outside?
On the outskirts. I live in Lowell,
Got it. Yes.
kind of northwest of here.
Yes.
Birthplace of Jack Kerouac.
Yeah.
And Betty Davis.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Little known fact.
Yes.
Looking at audio, playing audio for this, did you want to go ahead and play the ending?
Just the ending?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to dance it. I just want to listen.
Oh, okay.
The lace starts in the center. Antoine steps behind her, supporting her arms to extend out and hold her trust. Taking a moment, or to the right corner, they run again, taking each other. The lace starts in the center.
afford two string
but
players,
it's
but
also
we'll mic you. Like, no, now you're just gonna get two strings, but louder. It's not gonna sound like a full section.
had a disability benefit as well as
Well, I was talking to Bill, and it's like if you could record yourselves and then play on top of yourselves,
We could have done that.
I think we still could, because a lot of those secondary woodwind parts, me and Tyler pre-recorded. So like, and before we added the kid who was playing clarinet, the second alto,
Yeah.
before we added him, I recorded that part, I think tenor two, and I think another flute part, to kind of like beef us up a little bit. So I was playing along with myself.
Fair enough.
But then, when he showed up, all Bill did was just kind of take that other part out of the mix, and so now we have a live position. So we could do this. We could do the same things with the strings.
Yeah, I think I just decided to last minute to have the strings in,
Right.
and then it became
When we
like
found out we had the budget for it.
right. Yeah. It became a scramble to make it work out, and then it didn't
And
quite
then it
work
didn't quite
out.
work.
Nope.
But what you did end up adding, I think, helped a lot
Mhm.
compared to what we did 2 years ago.
Sure. Well, that's good to hear at least.
Yeah, it definitely added.
Sometimes you play a gig. One time I played, it was Emerson Umbrella in Concord. Typically, they have the pit backstage for shows, which means you're like all headphoned up and you can't see anything. You don't know what's going on. And one time I played, I think it was Big Fish. We came out at intermission and I was holding my violin. Somebody goes, "That was live music back then?"
That's great.
And they were like, "Wait, and there was a violin?" I was like, "Oh man, they can't even hear me."
Figures. But when we were doing What's on This Island, there was canned music at the beginning to kind of set the scene that we're in Haiti, and they played some almost like calypso kind of sounding like music at the beginning, just kind of pre-recorded, just to kind of get people like, hey, we're taking you to a place, we're going to set the scene a little bit. And one of the reviewers thought that we were playing it.
Oh.
He was like, oh, and the band even treated us to a little bit of island music before the show started.
Uh-oh. That's hilarious.
Well, no, but I'm glad you think that we're hip enough that we can play like
That's pretty fantastic, actually.
I mean, the band we had was great. We had a percussionist who crushed it, but no, that wasn't us. Where's our trombone set? Like, we don't have.
Hilarious. Well, one time I played the producers, and there's the one scene where the guy's fake playing the violin solo on stage, and I'm sitting probably from like here to Cat, and maybe even closer, maybe your distance. And these older ladies were looking at the guy on stage, and they're like, "Is he actually playing that?" And they're screaming now, mind you, in row one of the show. "Is he actually playing that?" And the other lady's like, "Well, I don't know." And she was like, "No, I think he is." And I'm like, "You idiots. No, I'm playing it. I'm right here in front of you playing it."
It's like the key picture told me is black.
Yeah. It was so funny. I was like, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Michelle's in the other room. I was like, should I grab it? I think it might be turning on right now. I can see a show turning on. Almost. Yeah, 2 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, it's way better that way.
Oh,
And just have to,
The opening piece of our show is inspired by Inu Hamer. Inu, the open X really wants to be film about making sure that we are building a more accessible Massachusetts.
Hello. How we doing? Good. I'm going to take my mask off for access. Well, it is so good to see a live audience for the first time since 2020. Woo! And for those at home, thank you for watching. We appreciate your support and welcome you into this journey. It's been great creating this intentional labor of love that is highlighting both BIPOC and disabled artists and activists, past and present, locally and nationally. I think it came from my own experiences and feeling not having that same equity in one or the other spaces and having to choose and really creating a space that's both and more and inclusive and really pushing forward true equity that involves all towards liberation. So through that, we are honoring different folks' stories and life journeys and how their work has and their identities have fueled their activism. And those are Mark Travis Rivera, Albert Joseph, Tiffany Yu, Heather Watkins, and Eddie Masonette. And past honors, including Fannie Lou Hamer and Brad Lomax, that have really pushed forward this work. In addition, we also partnered with Disability Policy Consortium, who is currently advocating for a few bills that would greatly increase our disabled community here in Massachusetts. And I would like to invite Harry, who's the Director of Advocacy, to speak more on those bills so you can see how we use that inspiration to weave that into certain folks' life narratives and to really humanize and bring and exemplify this work through art. So I will pass the mic to Harry to talk more about those specific bills and hopes that you can reach out to your legislators. All right.
Thank you, Elise. I will also take off my mask for access. Thank you. As Elise said, my name is Harry. I am the Director of Advocacy at the Disability Policy Consortium. We are a statewide research, advocacy, policy organization doing all of those things to benefit the disability community in Massachusetts. So as Elise mentioned, there are a few bills that we've been working on. These are in the state legislature that, if passed, would greatly benefit the disability community here in Massachusetts. And we would love your support on them. I'll explain each of them really briefly so we can get the show started. But I will also be outside at a table during intermission and after the show if you want to talk more and to give your contact information so you can get involved and we can reach out to you to talk more about the work we're doing. So first of all, one of the bills that we are working on we refer to is the family law bill or the parenting bill. It would prohibit discrimination against parents with disabilities in custody and parenting time cases in the court. So people with disabilities have their kids taken away from them at alarming rates due to really just lots of assumptions about people's ability to parent and what makes a good parent. That includes deaf people having their kids taken away, their hearing kids taken away from them because they need to learn how to speak. I'm using air quotes for that. People in wheelchairs who have their kids taken away from them because the judge or the social worker, DCF, can't understand how they could possibly do all the things that they're able to do as a parent. Mental health, people with mental health disabilities, intellectual and developmental disabilities, this is especially true. And what this bill would do is require the judge to provide written evidence demonstrating the connection between between the disability and actual harm caused to the child before removing the child from their home, and also identifying any potential accommodations or supportive parenting services that could be applied to alleviate the situation, again, before removing a child from their home, which when done unnecessarily is very traumatic and incredibly negative outcomes on the child and the family. The second bill that I'll talk about really briefly is the wheelchair warranty bill. Wheelchair repair takes an obscene amount of time in Massachusetts. I think the average wait time is about a month. So that means your wheelchair breaks down and you're stuck in your home for a month before the wheelchair provider, the repair people, the manufacturer does anything about it. And there's a whole host of issues and reasons why that is. But one of the solutions is improving warranty protections for these people. So that would expand the current warranty protections to include more people, including people on public insurance, which is most people who use wheelchairs, and extending the warranty to 2 years. And providing a number of consequences and incentives for wheelchair providers to actually do the repair in a timely fashion. And last but not least, we have a healthcare non-discrimination bill, which is one that our executive director, Colin Killick, actually wrote himself. And this was to address an issue that really came to a head at the beginning of the pandemic, when the crisis standards of care that were put in place during what was clearly a health crisis were very clearly discriminatory against people with disabilities. It essentially said that life-saving care can be denied or taken away from people with disabilities based on the assumption that they wouldn't live as long anyway, and their life was not worth saving. Obviously, this is really discriminatory, and so and we fought hard to change those crisis standards of care, but that was only for this crisis. And hopefully we won't have another crisis, but we need to put on the books in law these protections to prevent this from happening again. And so what this bill would do would essentially outlaw taking care away from a disabled person based on the assumption that their life is worth less. It would prohibit the use of metrics that are used to determine this in an academic standpoint. It also addresses an issue where people with disabilities are often pressured or forced to sign DNRs, as do not resuscitate orders, before receiving treatment, which is to say they're pressured into signing their life away, essentially. All of this is connected to this assumption that a disabled life is less worth living. And we all know that that's not true, and we need to make sure that that is encoded in our state's laws, so that assumption isn't acted on in the healthcare setting. So those are the three main bills. Happy to talk more in depth if you want to meet me outside during intermission and after the show. But so I'll hand the mic back over. But thank you all so much for coming. I'm really excited to see the show. Thank you to Abilities Dance for putting this on and for this amazing collaboration. Art is such an important way to be able to tell stories and promote advocacy. I am part of a Jewish drag troupe myself, so I understand how important and also how difficult it is to put art out there into the world and share a message in this way. So I am so glad that this opportunity exists for this community, and I'm really excited to see it. Thank you.
So, as you can see, those bills are incredibly important and need to be passed. So, urging all of the Massachusetts-based folks here and virtually, or if you're out of state, know people in Massachusetts, to write to their legislators and make sure that these bills get passed so that our community can have a more equitable Massachusetts. And on that thread, I want to thank our funders. So this program is supported by a grant from the Brookline Commission for the Arts, local agency, which is supported by the Massachusetts Cultural Council, a state agency. This program is also supported by a grant from the Cambridge Arts Council, a local agency, which is supported by the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and Abilities Dance is supported by the New England Foundation for the Arts through the New England Arts Resilience Fund, part of the United States Regional Arts Resilience Fund, an initiative of the U.S. Regional Arts Organizations, and the Andrew Mellon Foundation with major funding from Federal CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan Act. That sounded like a lot, but it's also just one grant. We also rely on support from audiences like you. So if you're able to donate, you can do so during our intermission or during online at abilitiesdanceboston.org/donate to help support and keep this work going strong. So if you're new to our shows, we have audio descriptions, which are words that describe the movements for blind and low vision audiences. They are played over the music so that there is a universal design element to the work. In addition, we have ASL interpreter and CART interpretation, and try to make our shows as accessible as possible. And so don't hesitate to reach out to us also if you have suggestions on how we can make our shows more accessible for everyone. And without further ado, sorry, one other big announcement, leadership change. So as of January, our director of music, Andrew Cho, and I became part-time, woo. And as of July, I will be full-time director of the organization and really able to see it fly, and so excited, and could not have done it without our board chair who is stepping down, Nicole A. She's been with us since the very beginning and really helped us to get to where we are. So we thank her for her support and welcome our interim director, Nicole H., because I guess we must have Nicole's as our board directors. But if you are interested in joining our board or know of folks, please don't hesitate to reach out, because we appreciate that support to continue to drive more diverse voices in our organization to keep it going strong. There won't be a Q&A at the end, but we do welcome feedback either for in person here or through email. We want to see how we can better support you. So without further ado, we're going to get the show started. Thank you all.
The opening piece of our show is inspired by Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer is a well-known civil rights advocate, but was also a disabled woman, a Black disabled woman who had a disability from birth as well as an acquired disability years later from unfortunate police violence and just advocating for the right to vote. And I was really inspired by the book Until We're Free by Hugh Blaine that chronicled Fannie Lou Hamer in a life that was very proudly Black and disabled, written by a Black and disabled woman, to have that perspective that we haven't had in telling our histories, and really inspired me to think of not just her story, but so many stories, past and present, that have gone unheard. This duet, danced by Cynthia and Caroline, connects really well to the bill about making sure that we are building a more accessible Massachusetts. The weight of this work is exhausting. Cynthia reaches her right arm out towards her right to exist like everyone else, falls to ground, brings a fist up, and smacks the ground twice. Exhausted from the forced optimism we have to take to preserve our dignity. In a low lunge, arms rise. Spin on her knees like a whirlwind and rest. Wrist cross. Arms circle up and over like a never-ending cycle. Like a continual cycle of non-stop advocating for one pill and advocating for the next. She stands, walks backward, assured. Alternate knee, rise like a march against fear. She spins and drops to a lunge. Her leg threads through like sewing the tapestries of these movements together. Her leg circles around to lunge. As she slowly rises. To the clarinet, arms rise. She spins around, looking up towards dreams of a more humane Mississippi like we dream of a more accessible Massachusetts. Caroline enters behind Cynthia. Both use their right arms to swipe their chest and down their left arm, facing right. They swipe around to front. Arms reach behind the lower chest, ready to take left. They hold their right foot up and extend their leg out. Arm reaches out and deeply circles around to face right with hands to chest and back out. The detract. Wiping sweat away from the brows of this Mississippi freedom summer, representing leadership in the oppressed and liberation building premier complex. Step back and let the blood rising down. They cast off notions that these equity movements aren't interconnected. Long before we had the term intersectionality, people like Fannie Lou Hamer lived it. And from the civil rights movement, provided a blueprint for feminist movement and later disability rights movement. They faced back in a deep plunge and breathed, looking up. Face front, legs bent, with arms bending back and wrapping themselves in self-care. Facing back, standing on knees, wiping sweat from its continuous work, despite the violence and their disabilities acquired from the violence of just wanting to vote, of just wanting to be part of that we and we the people. Wrist rise and lower, arms wrapped in self-care, and face front. Hands lower as left leg swipes forward and rises up behind the left arm. Lower and reach to the left. They roll up and explode in a loop. Because as hard as they might, no mob or biased politician can disregard those in need of change. They spin with arms windmilling, legs slide into a deep bend. Their arms alternate bending in and reaching out, alternating putting out good in the world and drawing in for self-care. They hop while Caroline arabesque and Cynthia extends leg out, reaching for each other. They run in an arc and leap. Pause, right hand reaches up and in, and left leg bends in. They skip left, then right. Caroline steps back, acknowledging when to give back space as an ally. Cynthia's hands circle over each other and reach down, then up, walking towards left corner, rest on her knees. Caroline resumes her support, circling hands over each other, then with arms out, bends over to resume circling hands as Cynthia rises to stand left of Caroline. They reach back, then up. Arm drops as alternate leg bends up, they alternate. Right leg extends to side. They pivot front as leg extends to side, bend in and run off to continue the advocacy cycle. Heather Watkins is a Boston-based Black and disabled advocate, author, blogger, and mother. I met Heather through Nicole A. and continue to stay in touch and support. In her writing, I was always interested in the idea of reciprocal caregiving and that idea of giving care and being cared for, particularly in family context. And talking about her father and daughter and the ways she supported them and they've supported her helped me, and I'm sure plenty of others, dream of a world where we can be parents and leaders in our families and communities. In addition, she is the former chair of Boston Disability Commission Advocacy Board and current board member of the Disability Policy Consortium. And she's advocated for accessibility in hospitals and businesses across Boston, and we have her to thank. So Jamie and Claire, two Technique Queens, enjoyed showing that reciprocity and care for family and overall community while relating to the wheelchair warranty and equitable custody hearing bills.
That I really get to showcase my experience, my knowledge in a way where I can intersect with other people.
Claire and Jamie start looking at each other. They breathe in this energy of caring for each other as arms rise to their sides and freeze intertwine overhead, keeping this reciprocal care building. They exhale into a deep bend with right arm rising and lowering, grounding into their community advocacy. Right leg rises up and down. They start to rise as their left hand grasps strings of community belonging. They grasp their hand and swing behind, spin out with arms at an angle and bent raised leg. They walk and deeply grasp in different corners of their community, expanding access and eventually thinking out of the box. Back to back in a lunge, they reach behind and up. They pivot to front, arms unfurl to care for each other. They rotate around like Heather's wheels. They arabesque towards opposite corners, spin with bent leg, trailing behind to ground with leg up. Leg swings up and over to a lunge, with arm reaching up towards ancestors' sense of caregiving. They wrap arms around torso in radical rest for themselves. Leg swings out in a lunge, rising and deeper into a roll to slowly stand. They receive the care they put out into the community. Inner leg extends up as they reach out into this energy. Arms windmill out as they skip towards different sides and spinning out, thriving in the space of caring and being cared for. They hop as they play the strings of the gorgeous granularity. Leg swings around as they spin twice, reaching down and around. Arms extend behind and up towards their role as caregiving. Pivots around. And skips left to the strings, adapting and hopping through their responsibilities in ways that work for them. They arabesque and swing leg out to repeat towards right. Arabesque in opposite corners as they find their balance in reciprocal caring, leaping in different directions but still united, kicking and switching legs in directions as they find their strength and their abilities. They walk towards each other, sighing and finding rest in each other. Pivot to front while leaning on each other. Deeply bend as they find grounding in society's oxymoron of disabled caregiving. They sway against that, and arms rise and lower. like kicks around as they open up to the meaning of who is able to caregive with their arms, spinning and intricately hopping to the strings as they stay within the lines for fear a small access barrier, like unable to pay for wheelchair repairs, could cost them custody in this ableist landscape, spinning midair and jump into an arabesque. Reaching back to lean on community, they spin and slowly raise, right elbow. Peeking underneath to their path of leading community, reaching towards the power of words and advocacy, grounded in intersectional truth and rising into real change across Boston. Sliding foot around and revering the change of Heather's words across disability commissions and social media. Torso leaning forward as eyes rise behind like wings. Torso rises to spin. Like a chain of words connecting towards liberation, pushing into an arabesque facing left, pivot to push with both hands against the red tape, allowing for wheelchairs to be serviced to equitably move through our city. Bending into a bent arabesque, skips and jump right, left with legs as arms bending in to connect. Inner hand gently undulates down like the peace one has when caregiving is not at stake. They spin and roll down to the floor and up. They spin in towards center and face each other. Arms reach out wide as they embrace each other, caring and being cared for through words, embrace, and fighting towards liberation. Brad Lomax was a Black and disabled, fierce disability rights advocate who worked at the intersections of both racial equity and disability rights movement, and is an not well enough known hero who connected both of these movements really well. Not only did he have the Black Panther Party support as Center for Independent Living, but also while disabled advocates were doing a sit-in for Section 504, Black Panther Party supplied food to those activists, including Brad Lomax, who were able to successfully sit in as long as they did, which led to that passage, which then led way to the ADA. So without his work in uniting those movements to create even more change, and we wouldn't have what we have now. And continuing to honor his work through connecting his story to bills about extending wheelchair warranty repairs so that folks are able to access a much needed and incredibly costly expense, as well as building a more accessible Massachusetts. Left to right, Lauren and Eliza are standing while Caitlin and Kylie are in a very deep bend, representing different identities and communities fighting for true equity. Right hand rises as Caitlin and Kylie rise and fall higher until standing. Arms reach out as they slowly rotate. Wrap arms around torso in community care. Pivot to front with arms extended. Reaching down with bent right leg and arm. Repeat on the left side. Heel digging into this work. Torso lowers and rises. Pivot to right. Right leg bends over left knee and circles up and to side. They hop in and out of their various communities, trying to find their place when not quite fitting in both or all. Arms rise, swing torso down and up. They move towards the center where hands touch in a circle. They form a chain, leaning and connecting one another. Their torsos rise to be supported by one another. They release into different corners of their individual justice movement. Pivot front and release arms and up. Arms swing down to fling back, reaching right mid-run towards equity. They scoop and slide towards center and to sides to unite their different movements. Lauren and Eliza sway each other, giving support and being supported in this work as they lower to knee. Caitlin and Kylie flick foot up leg with arms extended. It kicks out on an angle into an arabesque. Lunge with arms windmilling like the spokes of Brad wheels. Arms wrap torso. As they spin out, they repeatedly slide and reach out towards new paths of intersectionality, flinging out into notions, running in different directions. They fling out towards ideas that isolate movements and communities, reach up, then down, repeatedly as they find unity in their revolution. On their knees, Lauren and Elise swing arm up and over across the knee. They repeat on the left side. Diligently pushing through the spark, arms sway in and out of navigating public transportation and wheelchair warranty is not meant for them. They kick and pivot to right with arms swaying them in and out to stand. All get in a line and tap knees with arms circling around like a wheelchair's rotation. Caitlin and Eliza slide forward while Kylie and Lauren slide back. Eliza and Caitlin bring left arm and leg up and around, skipping towards each other. With arms circling like wheelchair spokes, they support each other's waist and bend into each other. Building foundation for strong partnerships across communities, they intertwine and swing legs up and over in this unified moment as arms rise and lower. They lower to spin on knees and connect hands. Feeling the connection of their communities, arms rise and lower, reaching up for wisdom and down for community-led initiatives, like when Lomax opened the Center for Independent Living under Black Panther sponsorship. Caitlin and Eliza roll to the back to start a movement phrase of grabbing each other's shoulders as they accept and reject touch. Kylie and Lauren skip forward, legs cross as they lean forward and wave. Arms circle behind and forward, their arms cross. Lauren circles hands up and over as both grab hands and stretch away as outer arms rise. Legs chug back. They lean towards left and up with arms flat and left leg to right knee. Arms open as their torsos lower. They skip to back. Right of Elise and Caitlin as arms windmill forward and back in unity. Like when Lomax united the Black Panther Party to support the 504 sit-in, sitting at those intersections of racial equity and disability justice as only Lomax could see it. All stand and lean in different directions, straddling intersections as they weave in and out of different movements. They move across the space freely as they find joy, like the ramp joy Lomax must have felt when 504 was put into place, paving the way to gain. All dancers pause as alternate knees and elbows rise. They pivot with arms up, hopping and spinning to emulate the radiance of Brad Lomax's smile with mic in hand, pushing equity forward. Dancers form a chain, leaning and connecting their identities and communities into one transformative revolution. Joseph, or EJ, is a dear friend of mine, identifying as a Black deaf trans actor based here in Boston, and they have been pushing the field forward for years now in dismantling autism and ableism for artists and audiences in Boston's theater. When I interviewed them, something that really stuck with me was discussing the joy of the physicality of ASL that they share on stage. And while neither me or the dancers identify as deaf or hard of hearing, we wanted to relate by thinking of the physicality of movement on stage and the power of that physicality that's traditionally been viewed as grand leaps and big tricks that can just be a flourish of the hand or using the body as a musical instrument. We also want to discuss the sense of home on stage and in the field and in the state, and tying in to the bills about protecting the homes of seniors and disabled folks on Mass Health, as well as a more accessible Massachusetts. Enjoy.
If I knew someone in Boston, I would gladly pass the crowd to a deaf actor in Boston if they wanted to take over that fight. But I haven't seen anybody.
Kate and Aaron look out intently. They hop, making vibrations through the floor. Right hand slowly rises up and over. Pushing out against access barriers that make us want to leave our home. Head swivels. They face right. Energy extends through their left hand. Right hand crosses. Opens as head sneaks through. They face back. Arms rise at their side. And arms windmill, taking in the space. Pivot front, upper body lowered, arms cross in and out as torso rises. Hands fabulously articulated left, then right. Hands close and center. Right arm slides up left as we redefine physicality and dance without big tricks, just bodies boldly sharing their truths. Kate's wrist cross as energy flows through her fingertips. To push. Aaron's hands and wheels, bodies connected. They walk back and forth, eyes connected as they communicate through their bodies. Kate extends right leg as Aaron grabs her ankle and encircles her as she gestures with her hand, pushes wheel, and repeats. Feeling their full-hearted humanity on stage like EJ. When EJ feels their most beautiful black and deaf self on stage, these dancers are encouraged to feel their most beautiful selves on stage. Arms close in and release. Kate drops to the ground, on her back, knees up, Aaron face right. They stomp, feeling the power of their movement. Kate slides up from behind Aaron, lifting Aaron's chair handles with a snap. Arms rise as Aaron pushes down her own handles, rejecting the wrong kind of assistance that further pushes us from feeling at home here. Kate rises as they walk forward and back, making larger stomps as they demand their place in their home. Alternate arms arc in and over as they face front. Arms ripple like ripple effects of having even more deaf and disabled artists on the stage for more equitable work opportunities and better representation on our grand stage. Hands pat down body, adding to the music with their bodies. Hands free face. and reach out like the hopes of an increasing, more accessible Massachusetts. Left hand reaches out with Kate's body making T release as they sway backwards. Aaron pushes forward, claiming the stage is home. Kate pausing mid-step to roll down and continues to move. Kate taking time to meet Aaron halfway without assumptions and guiding him to her own education to make the stage equitable for all. Kate reaches toward Aaron. Aaron turns, arms fall to his sides. Energy flows through her arms and melting spaces to Aaron spins to Kate's side. Their arms cross chest and release. As Kate moves forward and Aaron back, Kate into a deeper bend, then rises. Shoulders shrug to shift back with arms rising. Hands slide down leg to floor, steps and rises. Arms reach up and down. Kate spins and skips, finding the joy on stage to expand and challenge and finds stillness. Aaron comes to her side. Both look out with right arm rising, doing this work together. Arms cross as they find love on stage as a tool for representation and universal design. Because if we don't do this work, darlings, then who will? Medical trauma. Content warning, worse sterilization, and medical trauma. So please don't hesitate to step out if you need to and join us after. Many who don't know of the not so far off past during the 60s and 70s when it was commonly called Mississippi appendectomies or forced sterilization of Black women in Mississippi. And along the same time was the forced sterilization of Indigenous women. There's estimated 25% of Indigenous women have survived this heinous assault. And these issues haven't just gone away, where we see this still in Black maternal mortality rates and other ways medical racism thrives. And irony of experiencing my own medical trauma separate from these issues. As a reminder, we are still experiencing the systemic harm and are worthy of care, just like everyone else, tying into the barring discrimination in healthcare. Lauren, Eliza, and Jamie are seated on the floor in a triangle, Eliza at the point. Arms arched down in their laps, they sway side to side as if cradling a wound. Arms circle over each other in this cycle of life interrupted. Hands slide out as they arch through their back. Lauren and Jamie on their toes like a mermaid, their heads circle and they rest on their knees. They wrap their torsos in care from the trauma that should have been medical care. Arms grasp themselves as they rock back and forth under the violations of do no harm. Left to right, they reach to side and up, finding the right path forward from this bodily violation. They pivot to face back on their knees and extend right leg and arm up and down, hauntingly looking back at us, palm to head, to understand the hierarchy of eugenics over healing. They rock back and up, left leg, then right leg extend out with hands to floor. They sit, grasping legs and rocking, reeling from the violation of non-consensually taking away the ability to add beautiful life, pushing feet out against the floor. They roll, extending legs like in stirrups to face back, pushing up towards what could have been. They slowly roll up to stand, eyes piercing with pain. They roll to a very deep bend, Louise's hands bent in and others' arms to floor to stand. They spin and halt like generational cycles unfurling. Knee pushes in and out to face back. They rise in different directions. Hand sinks down and out to side, daintily pushing right and left. Left knee rises and opens up to right corner. Hands rise and sink through pelvis and out. They clutch empty wounds of the futures that could have been. Of Fannie Lou Hamer's desires to be a mother and other Mississippi African. Of the 25% indigenous forced sterilization in the U.S. spinning and reaching out towards a future with a just medical care, since all bodies deserve it as a human right. They spin one by one with right hand up, stepping forward. Pivot to face back right corner. Leg swings around to hop around the minefields of respectability politics and getting quality care. Womb aching. They step back and forward. Pivoting, torso lowered. Stepping forward and back to spin. Womb aching to roll torso down towards right, then left. They pause and roll in center. They repeat phrase again, slower, with more pained looks as diverse lives are attacked before even being. Standing, opposite arm and knee step forward, feet waltz towards left, then arms reach up. They shuffle back, casting off nightmares of dreams deferred. Opposite arms and legs circle open left to right. Standing with back arm up and front arm out. Left leg slowly extends, bends in, then extends behind. Face right, legs hop as they regain footing in today's healthcare. Pivot front with left leg extending out in a lunge. Hands and knees bend in. They spin out with chest lowered, protecting themselves from future harm. Their gaze shifts up towards healing. Arms open to side as they rise on the balls of their feet. They lower to deeply bend, grounded in advocating for healthcare and refusing to be devalued through biased metrics, pushing against discriminatory measures. Jamie and Lauren walk next to Eliza, who's facing back. Their arms interlock as outer arms extend up. Eliza rolls through their body as the ever constant of the sea, like the waves of equity, continuously pushing us forward.
We'll now be having a brief intermission.
Going straight to Mark. Yes, straight to Mark. Yes.
We're skipping, going straight to Mark.
Okay, going straight to Mark after intermission. Okay.
second half. Woo. So I did a wonderful duet with Antoine Hunter, who identifies as a Black dancer and director of his own dance company, Urban Jazz Dance Company, in the Bay Area. And I flew out to Cali and we set this piece together because in talking about these different stories and the challenges and barriers that we face, we also wanted to have a space for love and joy, since that's as much a part of the community as well. And so we did a duet just about that. And he wasn't able to perform live tonight, but was performing last night. And so we recorded that video and are going to show that to you today so you can see us in action. Enjoy.
The lace starts in the center. Antoine steps behind her, supporting her arms to extend out. She points her right leg and drops to the ground, still supported by Antoine. On their knees, they sway back and forth, feeling the calming breeze of access intimacy. She dives into an air rest on her knees, hands on the floor to balance. Antoine's hands like cup-like and spins around the room like a compass. Antoine falls to knees as Elise's hands lift his head in an act of reciprocal care. Her hand touches him to the piano as he reverberates. She lifts him, leaning back with left arm arched up and back. Both extend arms to the right, link her arms into the left. Antoine spins up to stand. He grabs Elise and lifts her with one leg content and the other extended as if trailing three motions of safety supported here. Spinning to back of the corner, he lowers her, grabs her waist as she grabs crutches to stand. Facing left, they chug back, left leg swivels over to front. Heel pushes in as torso lowers with bent arm, rising to pivot left, facing right. They skip to front, Antoine's arms swaying with his crutches. Her right leg rotates over as Antoine bends under him. They sway as her crutches drop, grabbing his arms and skipping. Spins underneath as he grabs her waist and her hands over his in an intimate moment. They sway, finding rhythm with each other. Elise's right leg points her knee as they deeply tug. She spins out and grabs his arms. They skip to the left. She spins under again as he briefly lets go and catches her as both of their outer arms are extended, leaning into each other in a moment of trust. Taking a moment to take each other in. As hands hover down the arms, feeling the their gift of joy. They reach forward and back, grab hands to skip. He spins, grabbing her hand. She dives down into a leap with feet together and down. They sway to the left as Antoine bends her sides in a leap and down to pick up crutches. Antoine walks to the left. They meet in the middle, eyes wide. They walk to the back. Outer arms flinging away the barriers of distance. Circling around each other. They walk back, running towards the center. Circle in and Annabelle walks backward to the right corner. They run against her. Enamored in the energy only those who are connected. Antoine walks alone. Hands are sliding in her arms, and holding chest while lays his arms and crunches flat like fire burning. She leans, then slides to ground with right leg extended. She releases crutches. Both of their right legs slightly. The least balances on the air. Antoine supporting her both slip and rest. The arms extended. Antoine's arms around her wrists, looking left, taking each other in the moment of contention. Mark Travis Rivera is a queer and Latinx disabled choreographer and storyteller based in Atlanta. We've known each other through dancer Louisa, who's danced for both of us, and knew that we could make good friends. And so for this piece, I was grateful to have two dancers who also dance with Mark, Jamie and Caitlin, to share movement styles and themes. We all knew that Mark was romantic, and so we wanted to give that same energy to a duet. But something that struck us feeling as though all other areas of life were successful but in love. And something that wasn't discussed in the interview and coming from me and just general musings was how those types of tensions can affect the future family, which connects to the bill prohibiting discrimination against disabled adults and family and juvenile hearings. Back to Mark to remind him he'll always have his dance family and those he's left forevermore.
I have this belief.
Mark Travis.
Sometimes I witness them in a way that they can't see themselves. And then years later, like, oh, you know, you saw that about me, or you knew that about me. And I was like, yeah, I saw that, I had that foresight.
Mark Travis Rivera is a Caitlin and Jamie start facing front, holding hands as Jamie extends leg out. Pivot back to back, face each other. Jamie supports Caitlin in a slow lean, V-queer. Caitlin steps away to kick and pivot back. They grab hands, walking away, release into a spin, then legs slice the air or scissor. On their hands, then down. Grab hands again as outer leg swings around in this moment of tension. They spin with curved arms and torso, lowering and rising as arms and left leg extends out, hop into a deep bend, feet together, jump facing each other. Bent leg extends out as they pivot out and skip back in a lunge. Caitlin supports Jamie as she gives into them and lifts Jamie up as Jamie leans back with bent legs, vulnerable yet supported. She lowers. They both stand face right with arms and legs at sharp angles open, lunge facing each other. Caitlin drops to floor. Reaches out arm, awaiting in love as Jamie holds arms and rotates Caitlin on knee. They lay on their back with legs but behind as Jamie scissors slides over them. They roll to sit, crouched in contemplation. Caitlin rolls to side and pushes up to sit and crouch, both slide in opposite directions to sit and face from opposite corners. Outer arms rise as they lean back, stretch to a child's pose, roll back as legs scissor. They roll to lean on side. Bent arm and knee rises. Rolling, they slide closer to sit facing back with arms up in connection, drawing deeper. Arms float down. Jamie stands on knees, pulling Caitlin closer. Caitlin's back leg extends out and around to roll over, then back to stand on knees. Caitlin pushes Jamie. They both roll backward. Arms circle over them. Jamie supports Caitlin as they dip with Caitlin's leg extending up and down. Caitlin rolls out and flips over, contemplating on this will they won't they spin out, contemplating finding their stable path of love among their overall successful life path. They step behind Jamie and lift her to stand to rekindle that connection. Jamie steps out and behind Caitlin to slide her hands down Caitlin's arms. Caitlin faces her, walking back to corner to the maintaining eye connection, mirroring each other in a romantic duet as hands explore their bodies and touch shoulders and waist at very angular, harsh lines. Right elbow rises. They look up, dreaming of what could be. They run backwards and pivot front. Outer arms bend in and inner knees rise. They alternate. Limbs extend out into a deep bend, facing in. They arabesque and step forward. High kick, skip to centers, wrist overlap, and outer leg kicks up and over as they continue skipping the opposite corners. Hand swipe shoulder and chest. Lunge, back to back. Hand swipes arm to spin out and hop with one arm bent in and one extended. Inner arm bends and the outer knee rises. They alternate. Limbs extend out into a deep bend, reaching each other in a deep bend, and then to face out and lunge. Arabesque, leg circles around, the high kick, skip further out as inner leg kicks up and over. Skip backward. Pivot in as arm slides into a jumping turn. Arms extend. Caitlin sinks deeper under Jamie's arms, pushing both forward into a future dream. Pivots other direction and pushes again towards future family. Jamie steps forward towards an alternate future, pushing against Caitlin's pull. With the cello, Jamie's leg rises to a kick. Then deep lunge to rise. Caitlin deeply arabesque. Jamie spins in the air. Caitlin's hands drop to ground as one leg extends up and down to stand, spins away, then both skip towards each other's hands, touch waist, finding unison in the hopes of their future family. Caitlin sinks under Jamie's arms, hold hands as Caitlin and Jamie back then connected like the connection of Mark's dancers, forever marked as his forever family. Arms open with inner leg bent in, outer bent arms pressed down, and they hop up. Hop front with arms crossed. Repeat the sequence again as they find a rhythm with each other. Back to back. They slowly lower to sit. Caitlin rolls torso to lift chest up, while Jamie crouches down. They alternate and find their balance in this new partnership. Afro-Quad, disabled, non-binary, interdisciplinary storyteller, teaching artist, and facilitator who was born and brought in Boston but currently lives in New York. I had the pleasure of meeting with this work, and when interviewed with our dancers Sarah, Erin, and Caitlin, we took time to digest this work and the conversations we had, and I realized that we had different parts of the conversation that stood out in unique ways. Aaron's own childhood stuck out in inaccessible schools and not being believed by doctors. Caitlin's understanding of having a life that works for their body and using swimming for calmness. Madera was struck by Eddie's writing and how we all have unique ways of communicating. And I learned in a separate conversation of how he's been an advocate for different community members and getting them the health care they need, which ties into the bill preventing discrimination against persons with disabilities and the provision of healthcare.
How about another reckoning of like, oh shit, my body has very finite limitations, and oh shit, my brain has very finite limitations. I turned it, especially going to I went to PWI.
Eddie Wisnut is an Afro-Quad, disabled, non-binary, interdisciplinary storyteller. Caitlin, Dara, and Aaron start uncomfortably shrugging their shoulders and breathing out with arms and legs extending at various heights, each embodying a different aspect of Eddie's identity in life. One arm arcs overhead while the other extends out, facing left, head pushes under bent right arm. As it pushes out and back in, they start to add their own variations to these movements. Signifying the parts of ourselves that are constantly in flux. They walk backwards, facing back. Caitlin and Dara's arms alternate arcing up and over, facing different directions. Aaron's arms arc up and over like a life arc, wishing to turn back to childhood. Alternate arms rising lower, arms hug the image out of the lost parts of childhood due to inaccessibility. For having to learn to be your own advocate before even knowing the word, because of the scores of doctors who don't believe and ultimately deny. Caitlin and Dara seated roll ahead and tap their fingers, stemming, finding social connection and peace in their truest selves. Aaron pushes right, then left hand. Dara then goes to Aaron as they extend arms and legs in different angles, spinning around each other in their repetitive movements. Caitlin wraps themselves in care, swaying side to side, contemplating crafting a life that works for their body. They scoop arm and leg out, then repeat bigger. They spin like a fidget toy and take moments to find, walk, and spin around the stage through their access journey and their bigger life journey. Caitlin pauses again at the front, swaying, finding comfort in repetition. Walks back, swaying toward Aaron. Dara steps away, one knee raised, thumb and index finger pinched like dipping a quill pen and writing stories about dogs and cooking and supporting those she cares about and getting the help care they need. Leg and hand extended to an arabesque. Caitlin and Aaron sway arms and legs with a steady repetition. Dara looks up to back and front left corner as arms fall to sides, pivots front with bent right leg in front as arms and leg expand out. Hands cross, uncross, lower as one leg extends out, hops, arms open, close to start a spin as right leg explodes out and she sashays across stage and follows the non-linear words of Eddie's pages across the stage. Caitlin and Aaron float hand down to the piano keys. Right hand scoops up, then around, as arms sway like London fog in a mug. Arms extend out and back in, caring for community and receiving community care. Grounded, they leave. Dara pauses at front, bent left arm and right knee open, side and close, slowly sinking down and using her writing and her voice as a way to dismantle medical barriers, care for community, and make sense of everyone's non-linear journeys. Yu is a Bay Area-based Asian disabled woman and the CEO and founder of Diversibility, an award-winning social enterprise to elevate disability pride, the founder of the Awesome Foundation Disability Chapter, a monthly microgrant that has awarded $59,000 to 60 disability projects in 10 countries, and a content creator with almost 160,000 followers across platforms. When we talked, we spoke about so many rich and beautiful things that it was so difficult to not create pieces for all of them. So I focused on the difficulty in her mother's slow journey to accepting her disability and what that meant in the context in their family and their culture. Something that I can very much relate to in my own strained family around this and other topics surrounding queerness and disability, and like others can as well. And while a lot of us are still on our way to that resolution in the end depicted between Kylie and Dara, my hope is that we all get there, which ties into the Building a More Accessible Massachusetts bill.
My word for this year is play. And I chose that word because I think about 9-year-old Tiffany and how she never got an opportunity to play. Like I talk about the grief of the loss of childhood innocence. I really like wearing big, fun earrings. This is an example.
Both Dara and Kylie are seated on the ground with legs bent around them, reaching up with the violin towards understanding, leaning down and extending leg out to sit. Head reeling from trauma at the start of their disability journey. Left and right arm circles up and over, facing in as they try to connect. Dara moves arms, trying to understand from a cultural background that sees this as deficit and loss. Dara hops in a deep bend as she tries to find groundedness in understanding Kylie's perspective. Kylie sits with hand out, waiting for Dara to see all of her. Dara's hands cross and grab knees, sinking deeper into her beliefs, and rises. Left bent leg rises, arms bend in, leg kicks around his torso space, rises, and briefly pauses to reflect. Arms lead her right, then left, as she lunges, finding direction to understand. Reaching up and down to face left, stepping deeply away from Kylie. Rolls to ground and up, leg swings around and to left. Realizing Kylie needs her support, she runs back to put her hand underneath Kylie's. Kylie rises. Dara, not knowing how to support her, freezes and looks away. Kylie pushes against her as Dara sways slightly, but remains unmoved, unacknowledging. Arms circle around. Kylie in a deep lunge with all of her might, struggling to move Dara as she slowly rotates, still looking onward, Kylie holding the duality of healing while educating others, like Tiffany's journey of educating through diversibility while on her own healing journey. Both swing arms up and kick, reaching down and up, a moment of unison. Hands cross, grabbing knees, reaching left, Dara pauses, Kylie kicks, each time harder as she struggles to find feeling safe, feeling effects of compound shame and grief, struggling to balance, walks to front as right elbow rises. And Kylie sinks deeper into finding community and access intimacy through spaces like diversibility. behind Dara, facing out, wrapping arms over her. But knowing her sheer existence will never make her proud, she releases, pivots to the side of Dara as she extends arms into a K with her body, pivots to face Dara. With music, hands swiping away the stigma and shame of generational and other forms of trauma. Hands crossed to grasp knees, pivots to face side of Dara, sharing her own disability pride found through community, proud of herself despite professional successes and numerous failures, wiping away the sweat from this constant work and releasing into the community to support a more accessible Massachusetts and beyond. Facing Dara, their arms rise. Outer arm bends in to point back, their arms bend in and cross in the middle as outer leg taps knee to spin them out. Bent arms rise and swing back to skip backward and forward. Their outer arms cross as leg bends behind them. They pivot to face back. They lean on each other, finding understanding and ultimately joy. Taking time to see all of themselves and make fun memories on TikTok or through whiskey tastings. They lower to ground with inner arms crossed and outer arms arched ahead, finding satisfaction and joy through this colorful life.
Hello. Hope you're all enjoying the show. We have one last piece, a solo of mine, and content warning, it does include suicidal ideation, but it's bringing it back to Fannie Lou Hamer and my own journey of resonating with her famous quote of, sick and tired of being sick and tired, but how inaccessibility and racism and other barriers that we face can not only impact physical health, but mental health, and the detriment of being in this work while identifying with the marginalized communities and just how far that can go. So hope you enjoy. The weight of this work is exhausting. I start seated, arms pushing out energy in time with the piano, pulsing, swaying, matching the intensity of the piano and intensity of the continual advocacy. Alternate arms and legs kick out, aching to feel home here, but knowing the racial and access limitations here in the sector and state overall that prohibit me from thriving. But I demand it anyway. I rise, tentatively stepping with one crutch as I learn as much as I can about these systems, so I know how to dismantle them. Feeling the pain in my core of how deep these inequities go. Feeling the pain of spinning towards folks in my field that are supposedly Black Lives Matter and disability justice while continuing to vote against measures that would help my community or even just wear a mask. I pause, right leg and left knee rise, rebound, right arm circles back and forth to lower torso into a jump. I bend deeply,
Feeling the pushback of this work in my core, crutches drop. Hands cross knees as they pull even deeper. I drop to the ground. Arms crossing, waving in and out, trying to make sense of the space. When Fannie Lou Hamer called Mississippi land of the tree and home of the grave, I felt that deeply not just from my Mississippi roots and the daily mistreatment of Black people there, but also the daily mistreatment of folks of color. Spinning out from this to stand with arms at side, I don't think most understand the depths of what Fannie Lou Hamer said. When I'm sick and tired of arms scooping, deeply lunging, falling to ground and repeating. Arms exploring in the sequence. I understand fully. I tried so hard to keep pushing my body and spirit well beyond where I should have in the hopes of intersectional equity in dance education, healthcare, government, and more. But I was continually feeling my heinous acts of injustice. Neglecting help in relationships, I crumbled. On the ground, hoping to share the depths that inaccessibility and racism can do on your body and mind. It's more than just an annoyance of having to use the back entrance ramp or temporarily without mobility aids because of insurance. Pause. You're telling a Black person to enter the back of the building? Sit with that one for a second. Also losing my freedom to enter my city, my home, and losing my dignity. Unfortunately, I let it get to me too far, and 2 months ago, I prayed to God to let me die, so I would never enter my inequitable workplace and inequitable sector, and not have to deal with the pain of medical racism and not getting the care I need. Hands wrapping torso and swaying, but luckily I had a community around me and began building back up to who I am, standing to jubilantly move across this space. Through this process and connecting with so many fabulous, strong, and wise honorees and artists and everyone who is fighting for a more accessible Massachusetts and beyond. I know we are doing this work together, and I'm not alone. Lowering to ground with arms crossed, our paths all intersect towards true liberation. Energized that our paths all intersect towards true liberation. Arms sway calmly. Soaking in the community here. Rising to a deep bend. Arms reach up. I step around the space. Waltzing through the journey of meeting BIPOC and deaf and disabled artists and activists. Taking in their wisdom, mutual aid, and knowledge we are all working together in this dismantling. I pause and take a moment for Arms wrap around torso. I spin across the stage. Taking moments to feel joy despite these barriers. I spin and center. I pause and remember that rest is a radical act and take care of me so I can take care of others. I kick away cares and enjoy this moment. This moment of community building and dismantling. This moment of recognizing we as BIPOC and deaf and disabled artists are here. Sitting in the center as arms circle up and over. Then rest.
I can take it. Yes, just for keeps. Thank you so much. All of you sounded so good. Thank you so much for bringing life to this music. Thank you. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Really fun to play.
Thank you. Yeah, this was really fun.
So realistically, how long did you have from start of project to completion of having all of the pieces written?
Okay, so
I was actually just really curious.
I started jotting down ideas in March, and the rehearsals were like mid-March, I think. So I had to get those done, and that was like really fast. And then I had to like edit some stuff, and then parts.
Wow. That's pretty fast, right?
That's pretty
I'm
fast.
impressed.
It was like
I'm very
crazy.
impressed.
It's like the fastest I
Thank
ever
you.
written. So.
Wow.
But
It already is.
really, yes.
Is that a purse that your flute fits in, or is it a flute purse? It's a flute purse. I was like, did she find the perfect purse? Because there are, because I have like a gold, it's a